Soulmates has two components. So it has the agent that essentially does the matching based off of the inputs that you've provided. And then there's a bracelet, which is a physical indicator of a.
Welcome, everybody. I'm back, and today, it's February, and I'm diving into decentralized science. I'm here with Amelia. You may remember Amelia from, New York or ECCs or Bangkok, where I wasn't, present, so I don't really know what happened there, but we'll touch on it. What Amelia is trying to do, it's kind of a science. It's not a hard science. It's a different type of science, but it belongs here. So, Amelia, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Very cool. So let's start with the basic question, which I ask everybody. This is, how did you actually end up in Web3?
Yeah, so I originally grew up outside of Toronto, Canada. Went to school for finance and started working at a bank right out of university. So did a rotational program at one of the big fives. And didn't particularly love working at the bank, but there was an innovation center like a lot of banks had at the time. And I remember going, and the person who headed up that group was talking heavily about blockchain. And I was never really interested in the, like, they didn't even call it DeFi at the time, but the financial application of blockchain. I was always interested in the use cases. I have a background in the arts, so I loved the idea of creating more ownership for artists and whatnot. And yeah, just became obsessed, bought a bunch of books on blockchain that were available at the time, and just dove into it. But I didn't actually start working in crypto until a few years later, after I had spent some time at Salesforce and Snowflake. So
I see.
it was always personal of interest of mine, but didn't quite know how to get into the industry. And actually, Coinbase, out of all the companies, reached out to me while I was working at Snowflake, which was pretty nice.
I see. Can you put it on a timeline for us? I'm totally fine if you skip the before crypto part. Just tell me the year where you joined the Coinbase.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what year that was anymore. I have to look at LinkedIn.
Okay, that's new.
Yeah, I know. No one really uses LinkedIn. It is kind of like a little personal timeline, which is nice. But I started at Coinbase back in 2021. So I started at Coinbase in 2021, did that, which was really fun. And then I went in, joined an early startup, helping on the growth/COO side of things, which is kind of silly when you're joining a team that's really small. Joined them for about a year and a half, and then moved to a founder in residence program. And that's actually where I figured out I wanted to build Soulmates while I was working on a bunch of portfolio projects. And then last April, I left that role and started my own consulting while I was sort of hacking away at Soulmates at the side.
Wonderful. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So is Soulmates like a side project? Can we call it that?
I would say it's definitely something that I'd love to turn into a full-time project. I'm sort of, I'm not really interested in fundraising. I think Soulmates can be revenue driven and be profitable actually pretty soon, which is great. And business model doesn't really make a ton of sense for VC funding. So I think oftentimes in crypto, we look to crypto as an example of how you should start a company, but I actually like looking to traditional Web2 companies or just consumer companies. And some of the biggest companies were built in the basement while they're working on other projects. So that's what Soulmates is to me. It's something that I want to be a full-blown business, and I have the privilege of being able to grow and build slow while I'm helping these other projects. So
very cool.
Yeah, I'd say that it's a company.
Good. Yeah. Just curious, is there any favorite project of yours right now, which you would like to highlight?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Favorite projects. I mean, I'm biased towards like Chipped and like Bear Baddies are great, like consumer-based projects at the moment. I think the other ones that are interesting is just like the agents that are being built with different frameworks available.
Hmm.
So there's quite a few different frameworks. I have a friend who's building offline protocol, which is also
That's
a
interesting.
yeah, a very, very cool project. So I'd say those. There's not a ton of consumer crypto out there though, unfortunately.
Not
Um,
yet. Yeah.
Not yet. Hopefully soon.
Soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's come back to Soulmates then. What was the motivation behind Soulmates? I mean, from the growth marketer, let's put it B2B person, how did that happen that you decided you want to create, um, let's call it a project which would help people find a soulmate
Yeah.
and do it in crypto, which is
Yeah.
all the weird combination.
Yeah, and I appreciate you not calling it a dating app because a lot of people call it a dating app, and that's certainly not what it is. It's really focused on
Hmm.
like finding authentic connections. When I first
That's me
joined,
speed watching the videos before we join.
good, love it, thank you. The um, the intention was kind of funny actually. When I joined the founder in residence program, I truly thought I was going to build a like infrastructure SaaS product because that's where a lot of my knowledge was, and that felt like the most easy thing to do. I wanted to be really passionate about the problem, and at the time, I was personally really struggling with loneliness, not to the point where it was like super severe, but it was just very frustrating for me that it didn't feel like I could quite find my soulmates. And I always use soulmates because I think we have multiple and different forms. And I was frustrated by the fact that technology wasn't enabling us to do that in a better way. Um, Again, I have the privilege of having worked at very large companies, and I know all of the data that's being utilized to sell us more stuff. But it's not helping us connect on a deeper level, and we know that people are willing to like actually pay for that. And so I just saw that there was a sort of unique opportunity to completely change the way that we meet people, whether it's romantic or platonic, and sort of create this like novel experience that we haven't seen before. And that's where Soulmates was born. Did a lot of like research just on our biological factors, social connection, psychological factors that really play into what sort of reduce that feeling of loneliness. And yeah, I just really wanted to be intentional with building this experience because I didn't want it to feel like another replica of what we currently see in the market because the direction that the market is currently going in is not helping the big problem.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions. When you designed it, was there any like a framework which you could use?
Yeah, I mean, so the proof of concept was definitely not like a fully built product. I think again we have this like weird approach to building products in crypto where we like build the product and then see if people want it. And I just wanted to make something really scrappy. So the form isn't what the actual product is. It was just a way for me to sort of validate a lot of assumptions that I had. First and foremost, I think that any company that's telling you that you're gonna or make promises of like you're gonna meet your soulmate by filling out all these like questionnaires and we're gonna find you the perfect match is really lying to you because at a very basic level, the way that we connect is based off of our pheromones and our hormones, right? We need to be in person and actually interact with that person in person to get a sense if we're attracted to them or we want to be around them. And then layering in some of those, I call them data inputs, um, so that they can be further matched based off of those things. The other aspect in those things is like what you typically think of, like what are your value based, like what are some of your love languages? There's a couple of different studies that have sort of incorporated into the questionnaire while trying to keep it fun and engaging and not feeling like you're filling out a Match.com survey, which can feel a little bit daunting at times. So taking into consideration those aspects, but then also the fact that humans change over time. I think one of the big problems that we see is that we fill out profiles once on like what we're looking for, but it doesn't really reflect who we are in that moment. And so like making sure that there's this like constant stream of data sort of updating based off of Amelia's needs and wants and values and how that's evolving over time, because we're so contextual as humans, but we don't really have the tools that are necessarily representing that. So if I were to sort of like break down what the framework was, it's like, okay, get people in person, get them to fill out like more deep layers of information about them while keeping it private, and then making sure that that's constantly updating. And then the fourth pillar, which is more around the experience stuff, like how do you make it feel more serendipitous and a novel experience? Because as we've seen in history, especially when it comes to consumer apps, people don't really change for lookalike products. They don't really change for like copycats of Twitter or Facebook. Like they want something new. That's why when we see like ChatGPT and like a lot of the chat models taking off, like that is a new experience that's enhancing our lives. So I really wanted to create like a fun experience. And I love the idea of serendipity, of just sort of bumping into the right person at the right place at the right time. So yeah, that was sort of my framework for building soulmates.
Okay. So it kind of begs the question, do you believe people have to meet in person? But then would you believe your AI agent to actually find you a potential list of soulmates?
So I have sort of a mixed feeling around this. I think there's two different things. You have your like digital twin, which is meant to be a like digital representation of yourself. But then you have an AI agent whose task is to go and find like matches based off of the algorithm that it's been trained on. So I think your digital twin ideally in the future would be almost a good match of who you are in person. But we're not there today, which is why you sort of have to do these like additional things to like get more information of that person real time. I do think an agent whose task is to essentially match you with lookalike people um, does sort of remove the additional time that you need to take. I don't really believe in the like they should be discussing back and forth. I kind of think that's like, why do you
It's
have
like
two?
behind your back.
Yeah, no, you have like two agents speaking to each other. I don't really see the point in that when they're working on the same data inputs. I think it's more interesting of like, okay, you have an understanding that these two matches are in the same vicinity. They've expressed their interest in the same thing, and they're open and willing to meet someone within a specific time frame, like a sort of match time frame. That should like the role of the agent should be in like, okay, how do I create this serendipitous moment for the two to connect without exposing any data? Because that's the other thing. I don't want people to. I think like existing dating apps are very invasive of privacy. I hate that people can see my profile. I don't want people to see that information. So I think the agent can use things like trusted execution environments to not expose that information, but still facilitate that connection and provide little clues. So like little hints on why you would be a good match, which help for the ice breaking and whatnot. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Look, I had a couple of discussions about this. I think it was in Brussels with somebody, and we got stuck on a disagreement about the fact that maybe if you would get access to all the data which a couple of companies already have about you, say Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and maybe one other your favorite app, and you would give it to any sort of LLM right now, they would probably be able to find you like a perfect match in no time.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like an interesting concept, and I'm again, like just playing on my experience from like Snowflake, I've worked at a lot of places that start with S, and I've made this toggle where
Yeah,
I then
can
made
see
my
that.
company Soulmates. So this S keeps following me around. So Salesforce and Snowflake, we talked a lot about like data silos, and I've written an article about this where like there's fragmented versions of Amelia that sort of live across the internet, and I think it would be really interested to sort of like create this like version of me, which is like all the versions of me online into one place. So I could be like, oh, cool, this is what I look like. And I think that's what like the concept of a digital twin is necessarily supposed to be, is that it's like, this is who you are. Um,
Yep.
but like data has always been, not always, data is a very important resource for a lot of these companies. It's how they create revenue. And
Yeah.
so, they're sort of I think a lot of them are much more open and sort of like opening the like data floodgates, but it's still not perfect, and data's not easy to work with, especially when you have different formats and whatnot. So
Yeah, I would, probably argue that we are not 100% there yet. Even if someone would give me the option right now to like take all the data we have about you and do whatever you want with them,
yeah,
I I wouldn't know where to put the data, so I could be sure that it's basically just me who has access to it and that I can
yeah,
work with it in like 5 years and maybe 10 years.
yeah,
So a lot of cool projects, but they're very new, so who knows? And there is a lot of places where I can put a lot of data, but there is no guarantee it's going to be just me who sees
yeah.
that.
Exactly. Like, what version of me are you getting? I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Coming back to soulmates,
Yeah.
um, in your eyes, is it more like a social media show or is it closer to reality TV?
Oh, okay, so it's actually neither. It's I think Soulmates so you saw Soulmates New York, and Soulmates New York was more of a like another experiment to see whether or not you can create like matches within a group. I had the chance to do that show because I worked with the Celestia team and the Meggie team, and they provided an opportunity for me to essentially turn it into a reality TV show. It was super fun. It was a great experience, but it's not really the ethos of what Soulmates is. And
Okay.
so if I were to sort of synthesize what Soulmates is, it's closer to social media, in the sense that it is a consumer experience, but it's also paired with a bracelet, which we haven't really talked about, like a physical bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
So are you familiar with Aura Ring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Used
It's
to have a
actually,
couple of them, lost them all. I
you
use
lost them
Whoop now.
all. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like me and my AirPods. I've lost every single one of I'm like scared to look at my Find My because it's just like a graveyard of my AirPods. Um,
Yeah.
I'd say it's actually more similar to an Aura Ring, right? So Aura Ring is amazing because it's providing all this data on your health and whatnot, but it's like a physical ring that you wear. Soulmates has two components. So it has the agent that essentially does the matching based off of the inputs that you've provided. Um, and then there's a bracelet, which is a physical indicator of you're part of the Soulmates community, but then it also has different band colors that sort of indicate your intentions. Soulmates has
Okay.
this concept of the seven types of love, which is based off of like, Greek mythology and how they viewed love. In modern society, we tend to look at love as like just romantic partnerships, but love comes in many different forms. So the seven types of
Yeah.
love is meant to sort of represent those different types of ways that you can connect with people. And the bracelet has a band color that represents each one of those loves. And so if you and I happen to be in the same city or at the same conference, like ETH Denver, and I see you wearing a Soulmates bracelet, and I say, oh, wow, okay, Pete is interested in making friends. He's open and willing for that. I'm also that, but I can see it based off of the bracelet. And what it does, akin to a wedding ring, it gives a social signal that someone is open to connection, and you get an understanding of like what they're looking for without having to do all the guessing work. Um,
Okay. Can you say what are the seven types of love you guys are matching for?
Yeah, of course. So let me pull up the list so I don't forget any of them. But there is, let me just grab it.
At one moment, I actually thought you were going to say, we are going to make a bracelet which changes colors based on your mood and intentions. But
I mean, I do love a mood ring. The agent itself, what we're designing for, and this is sort of alpha or beta. This is alpha information about soulmates. The agent is Cupid, but Cupid traditionally is viewed as this like baby in diapers with arrows, and it's a little bit cheesy and corny, and it's sort of a dated version of what love is. And so the new version of Cupid is actually sort of an orb shape, and it changes based off of your intentions. So it is kind of like a mood ring,
okay.
similar, but the bracelet, the similar to the bracelet colors, it would change the orb color based off of your intentions. But the different types of love, just so I could read them out to you. So first and foremost, there's Eros, which is passionate, like romantic, fiery love. You have self love, which is also really important. Agape, which is just sort of this like universal love for strangers. Ludus, which is like a flirty, playful type of love. Pragma, which is more committed. I'm looking for a longer lasting relationship. Phila, which is friendship. And then Store, which is like familiar, unconventional love. So obviously, some of those are a little bit more obvious than the others. But what I think is nice is that it sort of acts as a conversational starter for a lot of people, right? If they are part of the soulmates community, they know which color is associated with which type of love. And so it's an easy way for people to start conversations and sort of formulate the way that they approach folks.
Okay, so it's like an entry test. You have to memorize the 7 types of love and colors.
I mean, ideally, you just have a little card that you can refer to, and it's not something you need to memorize. Like, we don't want to make it that difficult, but yeah, kind of like that.
Okay, cool. So so you mentioned Cupid as sort of the little AI agent. When is it coming out?
Yeah.
How are people going to use it?
Yeah, so the cool thing about agents is that you don't necessarily need an app.
Sure.
I've been testing my agent. It's not perfect yet. I'm working on adding in the custom actions and whatnot. But you'd be able to interact with it in Telegram or X. Like, one of my strong beliefs of the world is that you don't need another app on your phone. You really don't. Yeah. So for soulmates, you would be able to interact with it either on X or in Telegram. Eventually, I'd like to add more clients like Instagram so that we can really expand out to a wider audience outside of crypto. But those are essentially the 3 clients that we're focusing on. And it would just be a DM to the Soulmates agent or Cupid and just saying, hey, I'm looking for this. And it will ask you like which city you're based in. Just some basic questions similar to what you saw on the quiz. And then based off of that, plus the data that they have access to from your socials that you give user permissions to, it would make the connections based off of that.
Is there a chance that, you are going to do the same thing you did in New York together, like with the TV show and stuff, somewhere in 2025? Or, you're going more stealth with the agents and Cupid?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing another TV show. I think we're going to be making a lot more video content, which is good. One of the big values of Soulmates is, again, you shouldn't have to put yourself on public display to meet someone, right? And it
Right.
was sort of antithesis to create a reality TV show, which, by the way, again, I really loved doing that. I'm very grateful to the teams who helped me be able to build that. So I don't want to sound ungrateful for it, but you shouldn't need to have social media, or you shouldn't need to have any sort of public profile to be able to meet someone. one of the things that I think is really difficult in our version of reality today is that social capital is built off of how many followers you have on X or Instagram and how much money you're perceived to have. And that's not a good indicator of whether or not somebody is a good person. I think there's a lot of different other indicators, and it's not really fair, and a lot of people will create like opinions on whether or not someone has social media or not. So, sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't think reality TV shows are necessarily the right fit. I like leaning into the anon aspect of social and like creating communities and allowing people to be anonymous and remain private, which I think is something that is like nice for this industry, which is like a good sort of starting place. But I know that it is also important for other people outside of crypto, like they don't want to have to put themselves on public display. So in terms
Yeah.
of what the plans are for Soulmates in 2025, a lot more community events, so really focusing in on like the cities that we want to launch in. Initially, we're going to focus on Lisbon because I'm based here, and likely one other European city, and doing a lot of community activations and making sure that people can meet up in person. And then just improving the agent overall so that people can ultimately utilize it and start meeting people in their cities. And then we'll be launching the bracelet as well later this year.
So that brought a long list of questions, but one before I forget, are you going to Denver with Soulmates?
I am, yeah. So I am
Okay.
not going to be doing what I did at ETC. I'm doing something a little bit different called sending flowers. So again, playing in the ability to be able to be anonymous. People can send their appreciation to people who maybe they've had a crush on, and or maybe just someone who's a friend or a colleague that they've really appreciated, and just creating that space in what is typically a work environment for people to sort of like shoot their shot, right? Like conferences are weird, there's boundaries that need to be held, and the Soulmates sending flowers is really meant for an opportunity for you to share your appreciation and love for someone.
Very cool. Very cool. I forgot my next question. Never mind. So with Cupid, do I need to live in a city where you have actually like officially launched Soulmates to use it, or is it basically working everywhere? I understand that there are two sides of the story. So I may be in a city, there may be no one else on the other side he can work with. So that's
Yeah,
possible.
no, it's a good question. We're launch-wise going to focus on like some key cities to begin with, and then maybe focus on having some ones that are more specific to like nomads, especially for the crypto community because we move around very often. Um, and the reason for that is because it'd be really disappointing for you if, say, you lived somewhere that didn't really have that many like soulmates participants and you didn't have an opportunity to meet somebody in person. So I think the biggest opportunity is really honing in on key cities where people can actually have these serendipitous in-person connections or activating at conferences specifically for crypto because that's actually when we all congregate best.
Yeah, that's true. It's conference cities could be a good base to
Yeah,
start with. So, what does success for soulmates, from your perspective, look like?
it's a very good question. I think having a like working POC of Cupid and building a bracelet that people want to wear on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of unique and very similar to what Winnie is building with Chipped for a different intention. But when you're manufacturing something physical, there's a whole lot more room for error than when you're creating software. Right? There's a lot more risk when it comes to the cost that needs to go into it. So I I want to build a bracelet, and that's been a whole other learning experience. I want to build a bracelet that people are going to desire, want to wear it every single day, and are proud to wear it every single day, which is difficult. Like, how many things do you wear every single day? Not that many.
No,
Yeah.
not that many.
Yeah. And then the product itself is, it doesn't feel like something that's ethereal and meaningless, in that it really sort of understands you and is making an effort to find matches that sort of match you where you are. That would be on the product side. On the growth side of things, because the cities that we're focusing in on, Lisbon is a very crypto-centric city. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's no crypto people here. But there's a lot of non-crypto folks here. And so I think if early on this year, we can start building a community with activations that draw in folks who are outside of the industry, that will be a really huge win for me. And again, because I'm not sort of focusing on the fundraising side of things, actually starting to build revenue and having a revenue stream is something that sort of demonstrates to me that, okay, this works, people like it, let's keep growing, let's keep scaling.
So if it's not a secret, so what's the business model?
Yeah, no, the business model is two aspects. So similar to what you'd have with a lot of other consumer applications, there's a subscription-based model, which has a monthly fee, mainly to interact with the agent. Again, similar to what you have with ChatGPT or a lot of other sort of agents that we're interacting with today. And then there's a one-time cost for the bracelet. So again, I used Aura Ring as an example at the beginning. Aura Ring is a great example of what Soulmates ultimately is. You don't need the bracelet to participate in Soulmates. It's helpful because it's such a big component for the IRL aspect. But the bracelet essentially would be an elevated tier that would give folks access to exclusive events and sort of like higher end aspects of being part of the Soulmates community. But again, yeah, one-time fee in a subscription model.
Okay. So at one point in time, I was thinking that you are going to say that the goal is to have people join and never leave. But once it's a SaaS model, it's kind of hard because the turnover is sort of natural.
Yeah, I think that the two are combined, right? So the agent wouldn't just be, it would reflect your intentions as well, right? That's what I meant, where it sort of changes based off of what you're looking for.
Okay.
So I think the two can intertwine, but to your point, like maybe someone doesn't want to interact with an agent and just wants to sort of live their life. That's where the serendipity piece comes in, right? Like you see someone who's wearing a Soulmates bracelet and you're kind of in this secret club together and you have no indication of it, but like you happen to be in the same place at the same time. Like it's sort of that sign that maybe you needed to just sort of look up and see, and you're like, oh my God, they're wearing a Soulmates bracelet and they're wearing the same colors as me. I'm going to go have a conversation with them. So yeah, I mean, you're right. You don't need to have the subscription to have the bracelet. You don't need to have the bracelet to have the subscription. Ideally, you can have both, but it's not necessary. I know a lot of people who, by the way, have the Aura rings and they don't pay for the subscription anymore and they just wear it as a fashion statement. And I'm like, this is not a fashion statement.
Okay, that's kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but to each their own.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's a real thing. Like you have to sort of let people do what works for them. I think at the end of the day, the biggest differentiator for Soulmates is that we're encouraging people to meet in person and we're using data for good.
Is it fair if I say that the bracelet is coming in 2025? Or is it coming this summer? Or when is it coming?
Hopefully in the spring. Yeah. So
Spring, or wonderful.
yeah,
Cool.
it's been an interesting process for sure.
I
But
just saw that you lit up a lot when you talk about the bracelets. So I assumed it's sort of close.
yeah, you know what? It's been really fun for me. Trust me, if you would have asked me if I was building something that was consumer, I would have been like, oh, that doesn't really like fit into my background. But when I think about the things that I personally love, like I've always loved fashion, I've always loved jewelry and building something and creating something that like I actually want to wear every single day and that my friends would want to wear, and still having that be something that's tech. And like I think fashion utility is so cool. Like it's so cool. And I always say, I'm like, why don't they make these prettier? Like, yeah, it's like something that I sort of discovered throughout Soulmates that I'm super passionate about and find a lot of energy in. Of course, I think data is exciting. Being able to put something that's tangible out there is just as exciting, if not more.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Yeah. I think we need more people doing some physical products, like
Yeah.
chips or, the bracelet.
Yeah.
Um,
It just makes everything that we're working on a little bit more real. And like as an industry, it's hard for us to see progress and for moving forward. And I feel that's why we love conferences, in my opinion, so much, is because we get to see each other and we get to be like talking about all the things that we're working on. And I think we sort of like undervalue how much we care about having tangible things. And yeah, Winnie's definitely like an inspiration. She's been I hate this word, but I'm going to use it. She's been a trailblazer in the space when it comes to building something that's truly different and important. And yeah, definitely look up to her in a lot of aspects.
cool. So Amelia, this was great. I think, we are on like 40 minutes or something. What is the question I should have asked and didn't?
What's the question you should have asked? And
Maybe because I missed the context, or maybe because I didn't know that this is important to you.
no, I feel like I try and get my important points out. I think maybe just for updates, like following along on the social, we're in the midst of like updating our website and making that a lot more clear on what Soulmates is. But again, if I was really to boil it down to two things, it's an agent and a bracelet that's meant to help you find more meaningful connections IRL. And then like future vision roadmap is not only are you building connections over time, you're rewarded for the connections that you build over time. So we're really thinking about like, okay, once you have this community, how do you keep them to want to stay around for a while? And I think a lot of people immediately think like financial incentives, but I think there's different ways that you can create rewards.
Token, of course.
Yeah, token, of course. No. It's not a show for token. Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
But yeah, I think that's another sort of thing that's not going to be happening in 2025. 2025 really focused on growing the community and getting more people on board.
Yeah. So for us who need it like in super simple terms, where can people meet you or Soulmates in the first half of 2025?
Yeah, I'm online. I hate that I'm online all the time for someone who likes being in person. If you're in Lisbon, just send me a DM. I'd love to meet in person. Next week, I'll be heading to ECC. Soulmates is going to be doing Sending Flowers. So
East
even
Denver, you meant, right?
in Denver, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
on February 25th, we're going to be at the Zerion House, sending out some flowers, showing some appreciation. And I think we're also going to be doing a community event at the end of March in Lisbon. So I think the best way to sort of keep up to date with what's going on is to follow the Soulmates account and follow me. And yeah, if you have any feedback or comments, or if you just want to meet up and talk more, I'm always open to connect with people, especially if they're interested in seeing how Soulmates can sort of solve their personal life.
I think that's a lovely line to end up with. It's
Yeah.
like, how can Soulmates solve your life?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
You should make it into a slogan. Amelia, this was a pleasure. It was a lovely chat. I've learned a lot about Soulmates. I am looking forward to the bracelet.
Yeah, please message me. No, such a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.